I know what you're thinking. Yes, I got a haircut. Yes, I am fresh to death while the Yankees are about to play. And there's stuff to talk about, like with the Chiefs. Let's just get into it all right now at Sprint Red Option. Welcome, everybody.
We are live.
My name is Jason Aponte.
I am Andrew Pasquini.
We're working. That's it. We're working over here. That's it. Let's go Niners.
Let's go Niners. Sprint Ride Option Podcast.
I'm Jason Aponte. That's Andrew. Nope. That is Brad Graham filling in for Andrew Pasquini. That's your special quote.
I like that.
Yeah. Make sure you follow Pasquini Andrew on Twitter. That's Brad Graham, who is going to be filling in for Andrew Pasquini on the Sprint Ride Option Podcast. 49ers Chiefs week. Pasquini's got some stuff to go on, and he said nobody better than Brad Graham to get this going with, and I couldn't agree more. Brad, what's going on with you, gang?
Well, first of all, shout out to Pasquini. I'm going to do my best to be able to try to carry the torch here on the Sprint Ride Option. I know it's a tall task, but I'm going to do what I can, and I'm excited. It's funny because we actually didn't do State of the Franchise this week, and so it's a double dip. We're double dipping a little bit, and it's going to be fun because we're gonna let Jason run it just like Sprint Ride Option, and we're gonna have some fun along the way.
100%. And usually I don't run Sprint Ride Option. Andrew Pasquini does because he's the GOAT in the game. Like, he's the GOAT, like the GOAT co-host. I don't think anybody else can lay things up, give their takes in the same way that Andrew Pasquini has. So you've got some big shoes to fill. And what I mean by big shoes is Andrew Pasquini's a really tall guy, by the way.
He's a big guy.
Yeah.
Definitely. Absolutely. But I'm down for the challenge.
100%. And I think nobody would be better for the challenge than you. But today, before Friday is 2 days away from the biggest game of the 49ers season. And every game is going to be the biggest of the season going forward. But this one feels a little bit different with the Kansas City Chiefs. Today we get news that Ricky Pearsall is going to be activated while Jauan Jennings is out. And real quick, Brad, I think the vibes couldn't be better based on the fact that Ricky Pearsall was drafted to be the deterrent to what the Kansas City Chiefs gave you in the Super Bowl in terms of separation and being able to beat man. And yet, here he is getting ready to have his first start ever, or his first playing time ever. I don't want to say start. His first playing time ever against the Chiefs, the team that he was designed to be able to beat. This feels like the vibes are through the roof. What do you think, Brad?
No, I agree 100%. I think when you see some of the videos coming out of practice and you see the guys all running around, and they were talking about it at the beginning of the week when Ricky came back to practice on Monday for their bonus practice, and then again throughout the week, the energy and the vibes, and with the situation, which we'll probably get to later with Jauan Jennings, you could kind of feel like the momentum going towards like, oh, we actually might see Ricky Pearsall make his NFL debut. And what again I think is really cool is the fact that if you didn't go to training camp and you're a 49er fan, obviously not including his college ball and his college career, but you haven't seen him in really 49ers uniform, like if whether it's going to the stadium or whatever. So he didn't participate in preseason, obviously, because he was a little dinged up prior to the incident. And then obviously we didn't know if we were ever going to see him step onto the football field again. So I think the team, this is such a vibes week. Like you and I, we talk about vibes all the time. Mm-hmm. And we incorporate it into how we analyze football because we understand that these are humans playing football. And so there is an energy element to it. And I agree with you. I think the vibes are crazy right now. And I think it's coming at a perfect time, especially with how the season started.
Yeah, and think about this. The 49ers and their fan base have been so excited about this draft class, and they haven't seen their first round pick take one snap yet.
That's a good point.
And it can't be any worse than that, right? Like it literally leads you to believe that this is the best draft class under Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. Would you agree with that?
I would say probably when it comes to coming out the gates firing, absolutely, because you have Malik Mustafa, who's he was a little dinged up against the Seahawks, but
I think he
coming away
starts. I
with
think he
that,
plays.
yeah, I think he'll play. He was cleared off the injury report, but coming away with that interception, that was huge. Then Renardo Green against DK Metcalf in a big time moment, being able to undercut his route and pick that ball off. Isaac with the crazy run down the sideline. I mean, Dominic Pooney, has probably been the star of the draft class so far. Um,
Mm-hmm.
every single game for the 49ers. So, you're getting contributions from this rookie class right away. And Jason, you and I, we talked about it all summer. We're like, dude, this draft class is so important because they need the young guys to actually contribute. Because when you look at the 2023 draft class, you look at the 2022 draft class, yeah, you take away Brock Purdy from that class, and what do you have? You really
Nothing.
have much of anything. And that was like one of the reasons why we were kind of stressing about depth heading into the season was, man, we don't have those young second, third year players ready to step into those roles because your Drake Jacksons are on IR or guys are cut like Danny Gray. And, we don't even get to see them out here. So, seeing the returns of this draft class and the fact that they are actually impacting wins and important wins has been great. It really, really has. It's been a lot of fun to see.
Yeah, I don't think it's close when it comes to the draft classes. And if Ricky Pearsall gives one catch this week, that's more than enough. Like, especially considering like the idea that this young man was shot how long ago, and and let alone just having his life, he's gonna play football.
It'll be 50 days
50.
from the day he was shot till the day he suits up for his first NFL game.
That's insane. That's insane. That's insane. Regardless of whatever you think, we don't know what the player is, and the player is going to have
Right.
to
We still got to
prove
evaluate
himself.
the player.
Yeah,
I agree.
that in itself, right there, is impressive and incredible. And again, the vibes going in, and again, I'll tie it back to this. Ricky Pearsall, Jacob Cowing were drafted to beat the Kansas City Chiefs and their man defense scheme to get separation. And for him to be activated right here in this game feels like poetic justice, just a little bit. Ryan Reed with the super chat. Let's get to it. I know we're on to Kansas City, but I'm not done popping my shit. Seattle in the dirt. New pack in the air. It's gas or what? Still smoking Seattle. Look.
It's always smoking that Seattle pack. That never changes. Ever.
Ain't nobody worried about them. Ain't nobody worried about them. Keep it moving. Look, in the same breath, and this is the best way, and I'm going to use this, Ryan. Thank you for your contribution. I'm going to use this in transition. And this is my good segue into this. It's not a rivalry until you win. The Seahawks ain't our rivals. Y'all can't beat us. You're not a rival. The Dallas Cowboys aren't our rival. You can't beat us. You're not a rival. The San Francisco 49ers have to win on Sunday to make this a rivalry because they have not been able to beat them. And I'm going to keep that same energy. What do you think, Brad Graham?
No, I think you're 100% on point. I think you're also kind of the one who kind of put me on to this ideology of you can't really be a rival if you never win, right?
Nope.
Like it's not really a rivalry. The point of a rivalry is it's tight, it's back and forth. The pendulum is constantly swinging, but if the pendulum just stays in your side the entire time, what's the rivalry? So I kind of agree with that because the 49ers, this is the monkey off the bat game. And I think there's been a lot of conversation about this week. I think the players have been asked about it, general manager and head coach, of like, what does this game mean? You've never beaten the Kansas City Chiefs, which includes 2 Super Bowls. That's a pretty big deal, right? So I think that there's 2 distinctions. One, that this win, or if you get this win, it doesn't change anything that has happened. And I think there's been a lot of people who've kind of been associating like, well, it's not going to get us a Super Bowl. Like, yeah, no crap, we're not going to get the Super Bowl. But we talk about the mental aspect of the game. We talked about humans playing this game. There's a huge psychological issue with this game because they got to be able to get over the hump of the Kansas City Chiefs. That's really what they got to do.
Seahawks beat the Santa Clara 49ers in the 2013 NFC Championship game. Okay.
When was
So
2013?
so get back in your time machine. Go back to then when the Seahawks were better than the 49ers, because in 2024 they're not better. I can do the same exact thing. The New York Yankees have won 27 championships and they were better. Are they better than your team today? This is by far one of the worst arguments in the history of the world, because you know what happens today. Run it back again. Run it back in with 1 day's rest. Run it back with 1 day's rest. The Seattle Seahawks against the San Francisco 49ers. Get your ass whipped again. It's a poor time for you to be acting like, oh, we were nice in 2013. That's actually a sad statement, and I feel bad for you. But I want to say this, when we're talking about this. Now let's transition to this. The 49ers, do they need to win this game to prove something to themselves? Not the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs don't underestimate the 49ers. But do the 49ers need to win this game to prove something to themselves? And if you do face the Chiefs again, it would be in New Orleans for all of it. But do the 49ers have to win this game just to say, ha, we got one?
I would say 100%. I don't think this is a must-win game in the sense of what it means in, the NFC and the playoff seeding. Obviously, you would love to be ahead of 500 and be able to stack that momentum into a game against the Cowboys and head into the bye 5-3. That's fantastic. But is it a must-win game from that standpoint? I would say no, because they could still overcome that and still go on a run and still put themselves in a good position. But I think when we talk about the psychological aspect of sports and sports psychology, it's just like anything that anyone has in front of them. Like you can make any example. I'm sure you could come up with a pretty spicy one, but when you just have something in front of you that you have to accomplish and you have to get over the finish line, but every time you've accomplished it, you've fallen short, and you need to do it, you can do it, but you just fall short every single time. And then you get spinning, you getting ready to start to do this task again, and you realize, damn, I still haven't gotten over this. I still haven't completed this. I know I can, but I haven't. That's why it's a must win for them, because they need to mentally get over that. They need to be able to, the way that Debo and Kittle talked about it on their podcast, the way I've heard Fred Warner talk about it, the way I've heard Trent Williams talk about it, they know that this won't fix anything of the past, but they do know that there is a psychological element of just being able to say, we beat the Chiefs, and especially when they're 6-0. Right? Especially when they're considered to be still the best team in the league, although we know they're not firing on all cylinders and their offense is a little disjointed and they've been injured. But hey, that doesn't matter. It's about getting the W at the end of the game. I think it's a must win. I think you have to be able to prove to yourself that you can beat Patrick Mahomes. Like you really do, because there is a high probability, right? We know what the goal is. The goal is to be back in the Super Bowl. If the goal is to be back in the Super Bowl, there's only a handful of outcomes, and facing Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs and Andy Reid and Spagnuolo, like that is a huge realistic outcome. It's not only for the players, it's for the coaches. It's for Kyle. Yeah. Kyle's got to be able to beat Spags. Kyle's got to be able to beat Andy. Like it's at every level. Obviously, the new guys don't have that same thing built into it, which is actually, I think, is good for them.
Actually, that's great.
I think it's great. They don't have the scars heading into this.
They're not afraid of the big bad wolf.
Exactly. So it's really about I've heard it expressed like slaying the dragon. Like that. It's really like it's David versus Goliath. It's like it's the whether you want to be David, whether you want to be Goliath, right now, the Chiefs are Goliath. They are the big bad wolf, just like you said. And the 49ers haven't been able to get by him. And so to me, that makes this game a very, very, very important one from an element that doesn't necessarily that we don't normally speak to, I don't think. Like when we talk about games, we talk about games in a form of win-loss execution, things like that. This one is more of like a spiritual, like we gotta get past this team.
And you know what's funny is like when you're talking about these games and you're talking about psychological, right? It's just like a basketball player seeing the ball. We need to see the ball go through the hoop.
Yes.
Like when it comes to this, more than
Great
anything.
analogy.
And that's it. Like it's just you kind of have to see that. And Lisa's donation, thank you. The refs for this game, yay or nay, Alan X team. Real quick, I'm just gonna say, I think you allowing the refs to have an impact in this game is kind of your fault, just a little bit. You can't leave this game to be close enough for the refs to have an impact in this game. And this falls on the 49ers to start fast, keep going, and finish the job. Don't let them hang around. You let the Rams and the Cardinals hang around. If you let the Chiefs hang around, then I think you know exactly, how this thing finishes. But I have a hard time blaming the refs. You know what's funny is Rich Madrid pointed out the 49ers and the Chiefs are the two least penalized teams in football. But I do think that lends to what Lisa's talking about. They never get called for holding. They never get called for what it is, but they always get the calls. And I don't care where you fall in this line. Like if you're a 49ers fan who is a diehard and you hate the Chiefs, I get it. I think we can all agree they always get something. They always get something. Like they always get it's either a play that shouldn't happen or a penalty that shouldn't happen or a penalty that just behooves them. Like everything always goes their way. But leaving the game up to the refs is where most people's mistakes are. And that's why they hang around good enough because of their defense, because of who they are. And then those plays just tend to go their way. Shout out to Daniel. He sent the 199 just to say it, but he says we need this dub. I think absolutely is true. And to double back real quick, I'm gonna get to Lisa again. Thank you for the donation. Yes, but I just need to know if I should take my BP meds or not. Take them. It doesn't matter who the 49ers opponent is at this point, right? Like at this point.
Yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
Please take them. Just for your health, please.
Definitely take your meds because the refs will be a factor, but the same thing that Jason said, like I still to this day haven't placed blame on the refs for the Super Bowl loss. Like
right.
Did the refs play a role in it? Absolutely. But so did the 49ers. The 49ers played, I would say, a bigger role in the loss of that game than the refs did. Would the refs calls here or there change the outcome of the game? Maybe, potentially, sure. But again, I think that's the point that where me and Jason feel the same on this is you have to control what you can control. You can't worry about things that are uncontrollable. You can't dictate when a ref isn't going to throw a flag. You have to just go out and execute. You have to play your game. You have to not you can't turn the ball over. You have to be able to go out and get this win. You have to execute. You have to play your game. You have to do what you need to do to be able to make sure that the refs aren't in a position to change the outcome of the game. So that's where I've always believed. I think, I don't know if that's because, that kind of comes from how I felt as a player when I played back in the day. It's like, you can't control the bad calls. The bad calls are going to come. It's just, it is what it is. But, my coach has always told me is don't put the game in the ref's hands, because if you do, you're going to lose. You have to control the outcome. You have to control the controllables, and you have to go out and make sure that the refs can't dictate the outcome of the game enough to sway it. And when you let teams hang around, when you let teams stay close, that's when those things pop up. And that's when you lose momentum. That's when momentum shifts sides, is when you get a crazy call in a crazy moment, or a PI that shouldn't have been a PI that takes points off the board. Like, yes, that all impacts the game. But I am a true believer of you got to be the one to win the game.
Yeah.
You can't put yourself in a position to let the refs dictate the outcome and then be upset when they do dictate the outcome and it doesn't go your way.
Yep. Jonathan Lee is yawning. I don't know what he's yawning about, because I feel like this is a great discussion, but hey, everybody has their opinion and everything. I wanted to make sure I put that up. Let me ask you this. I have a lot of matchups in this game. And by the way, I think the 49ers are going to win on Sunday.
I mean, that's what I think as well. But again,
Yeah.
You got to go and play the game.
100%. But is the biggest matchup in this game not on the field, but on the sidelines? Kyle Shanahan against Spags. And I wanna preface this by saying this. 49er fans heard what Spags said about Brock Purdy and said, "Oh, that's just him, like, being like, whatever, gamesmanship, right? Like, do you want to say that?" No. He literally went on to talk about in the Super Bowl, like, we ran zone and he was shredding us and we had to change it. So he's not lying when it comes to that. Where you wanna throw the blame to them making the adjustment, that's up to the viewer. But adjustments from Spag, adjustments from Kyle, like, this is the chess match, because it's Kyle versus Spags, Flores, Jim Schwartz, that you feel like, man, I don't know about these. And it's crazy to think that, because everyone would love to have Kyle as their coordinator or, head coach. But those are the moves, right? Like, so Spags and Andy. I see Andy in the thing. Spags and Kyle, that's your number one matchup, right?
Yeah, I would say so. I think Kyle is so scheme predicated that he can get in his own way. I think one of the things with Kyle is you would love to see him, instead of rely so much on the scheme in certain instances, is rely on your players to make plays.
Yes. 100%.
Put the emphasis on them and the onus on them to go out and make the play, not you scheming up against a defense. Because when the defense has the answer to what you're going to execute, then you need to figure out how to get the ball into your playmakers' hands and let the playmakers dictate the game
and
from
real quick,
that point forward.
I don't want to cut you off. I want you to keep going. But I think a lot of people with their complaints about Kyle is that Kyle is emphasizing scheme over players. Like, my scheme, you listen and we figure it out, right? And I think that's kind of what you're talking about right now.
Yes. And it was funny. We had Debo and Kittle talk about that. He's like, man, if you get on the bad side, you don't execute, you don't do what you're supposed to do, Kyle ain't gonna call up your number. Kyle ain't gonna dial it up for you. And it is what it is. I think Steve Young even alluded to that on KNBR. He's like, it feels like Kyle, like, we'll get into these modes where, like, if you're kind of on his bad side, he's just not gonna call your number. He's not gonna. And at a certain point, it's like, at what point are you more of a detriment to your overall success than just actually just play the game, just let the game come naturally. So I think both you and I think Kyle's a great coach, and there's a lot
100%.
of good things that he does, but there's also some things where you're like, let's lax certain elements of this stuff. Like, let's quit putting so much pressure on you to get it done, and just recognize that you do have a lot of talent and weapons around you. And I think that's been one of the, not to go off on a tangent, but one of the cool things about Brock is he's playing outside the structure of Kyle's offense, and he's actually taking the offense to another level. And again, I think as long as they can continue to build that trust, and not only with Brock, but with the rest of your guys, like just you play outside of your scheme sometimes. I think
Yep.
Kyle can be his own worst enemy at times.
Yep.
And I think, if he can get out of his own way, quit over analyzing everything and just play more freely flowing and organically and just let the game come to him rather than trying to force these things that he's trying to execute, then the team feels less rigid, right?
Yep.
They feel less like robotic. They feel more like, all right, we're just going to go ball. And I think I think if I had to have a critique of the way Kyle calls games, I think that would be it. Is it just it can get robotic and rigid, and sometimes you have to let these guys go hoop, right? You got to let them just like get crazy, start throwing pick and rolls. Like you just got to let them go. And so yeah, I do think one of the biggest matchups, not only Kyle versus Spags and Andy, it's Kyle versus Kyle, man. Just let him ride, let him cook, as the kids say.
Ryan Reed says, "Yo, can we talk about Pearsall? I think it's a dog." Again, Ryan, I said, Ricky Pearsall was drafted because of what the Kansas City Chiefs did in the Super Bowl, and it feels poetic that his first game is going to be against the Kansas City Chiefs, who tend to be more of a man team. I think all of this is locked in. And look, Andrew Pasquini says, "This is the best Andrew has ever looked." Andrew, I love you, buddy, man. Like,
no way.
No way. Yeah.
Your beard is way better than mine. I would trade my beard any day of the week for your beard, my guy. Like, let's keep it a buck.
Nobody does the beard like Andrew Pasquini, and that's a giant man as well too. He's just a hunk of a man, like literally, like off the rip. Like, let's just make sure we say that. DJ Aram, whoa, smash that like button, Spicy Squad and SDS. Yeah, this sprint ride option. The sprint ride option is a little bit of a clash of like state of the franchise and everything as well too. But I want to make sure that I preface this and I say 100%. Andrew Pasquini, when he said we need a new co-host because I will be out this week, the first name that was brought up was Brad Graham, and he just wanted to make sure. But
shout out Pasquini, the GOAT.
2720, he says, and that's in ink. If you want to go on NinersNation.com to look at it, over Purdy rushing yards is the freest money in the history of Vegas. The freest money. So yes,
we took the over. We took the over today on.
We always take the over, always, and they've been moving it up. You can move it up to 15.5. I'm good. I am good.
I took it at 15.5. I was a little hesitant. I'll tell you why I was hesitant. Because sacks take away from rushing yards, correct?
Do they?
And I'm just, I
think they take away from passing yards, not rushing yards.
You sure?
Yes. He can't be like if he's out of the pocket. If he's out of the pocket and he gets the sack, it's him running. But if he's in the pocket, yeah, like I'm not tripping. 15.5, yeah, it's over. It's up.
He's gonna be getting. There's gonna be some pressures, and he's gonna have to get out and make some shake. So
and based on the fact that
afford to actually do that,
right? And based on the fact that the Chiefs. You know what's funny? And Johnny Dell's pointed this out. Shout out to Johnny Dell's Football Academy. I know he's not watching or anything like that. The 49ers have the number 1 passing defense when they don't blitz. They have the number 31 when they blitz. The Kansas City Chiefs have the number 31 passing defense when they don't blitz and the number 1 when they blitz. It's insane the parallels and the way that this defense goes back and forth. And JFig 909ers, BA needs to show up as well in this game. I got some thoughts about that as well too.
He's got McDuffie.
No, McDuffie's good. McDuffie's very good. In fact, McDuffie and Watson are very good, and they found him at the end, right? Of their draft. And credit the Chiefs, man. Hey, Tyreek Hill, you want to get paid? We don't got time to pay you. Cool, man. Go somewhere else. We'll still find a way to win Super Bowls. Hey, L'Jarius Sneed.
Remember how bold that was? How we were like, did they really just trade
Tyreek do that? And then what? And then just transform their offense? Yep.
Yeah.
L'Jarius Sneed, you can go. We'll find somebody else. But
yeah, crazy.
I
guess it helps when you have Patrick Mahomes at quarterback.
Of course. That's the great equalizer. Because the Chiefs' red zone offense is trasher than the 49ers somehow. I don't know how that's possible. Yeah, I don't know how that's possible. But when it comes to this, and we're talking about right now, like we're talking about Brandon Aiyuk, this got to be his game. And we talked about this all offseason, right? About the 49ers prioritize man beaters, Ricky Pearsall, Jacob Cowing. We can't get clamped up like when it comes to these things, right? Now, Brandon Aiyuk is a wide receiver one. We all agree with that. But do you think that people just let Justin Jefferson run around by himself and not get covered by somebody else second? Do you think that people let Jamar Chase run around by himself without the best person on him? Like, I'm not putting you in that class, but when you want to be in that class, I don't care what the defense is throwing at you, because Calvin Johnson, Julio Jones, Jerry Rice, Terrell Owens, all these guys, anybody, Randy Moss. You think that people were just like, oh, maybe we'll just leave one guy on it. You've got to find a way to produce. You've got to find a way to produce. So we're 7 weeks in. I don't want to be too hard on Brandon Aiyuk because I understand how the offense works. And, if Deebo Samuel's open, throw the football to him. But Brandon Aiyuk, I think I'm getting a little bit tired of hearing, well, everybody's rolling the coverages his way. Well, everybody's paying attention to. Isn't that what happens to wide receivers once, Brad Graham?
It is. It is. But again, I think it's a double-edged sword. I think we have an offense that's predicated on timing and precision. And if Purdy sees something that's not supposed to be there, he's not going there. And I think if he's not seeing, I'm trying to think back to watching the Seattle Seahawks tape. I don't feel like there were a ton of opportunities where Brock was really looking at BA
right
first. I felt
and
like
for whatever reason,
a lot of
and
Kittle, a lot of Debo.
No, and sometimes I think I can point to it by whatever I believe the progression is, right? Like, let's say, like, I've got in my mind, like, I saw the play call, and like I think that I've got the right play call, and you know what? I could be completely off, but I don't. I feel exactly how you feel. Like, at times they're not looking at him, and he's open. So I just want to make sure that, like, we're kind of at least towing the line and talking about it, because I'm tired of hearing about, like, everybody's clamping up Brandon Aiyuk. No,
I feel like
that's what happens to every wide receiver one.
Yeah. I feel like he's getting coverage, but they're not. I don't even want to say forcing the ball to him. They're not like being proactive in getting him the ball, if that makes sense. Like, if you like, I remember one of the plays they had against Seattle. You know how they run the deep seam clear out, and then you got the deep in breaking route, and they got Debo. It's like a zone beater. So BA didn't even turn around and look. He just ran straight. He just sprinted all the way up the field. Debo came on the under. They had Love in coverage, so Brock bailed and he found an open Kittle kind of in the void. And that play stood out to me because it's like, again, clearly BA is not a part of that progression. He is not even turning around to even see if the ball is coming his way. He's literally head down, sprinting up the seam.
And that's the same thing. And that's the same complaint that they have with Deebo Samuel when he's not the primary read. Like, are you running the route just as tough?
Right. So it's like,
I agree with that.
it's like Kyle's scheme is so like predicated on what you're seeing. And like, how Brock, he'll pick one side of the field, right? And like, for whatever
sometimes
reason,
it's a progression where it's cut the field off.
Yeah, and sometimes BA is just on the other side of the field, and so sometimes he doesn't make his way all the way back. I think we saw some of that against Arizona. So
I mean, bit of that Minnesota last year.
Yeah,
I can say that for
exactly.
They were just using him to clear out. They were using him to clear out the field so Jawan Jennings could like have his room to operate.
Yeah, I feel like it's less. There's a lot less, F at BA's down there somewhere throws like that.
Right.
It's just and I think that takes the whole group, right? I think it takes Kyle dialing it up. It takes Brock seeing it and throwing it. It takes BA getting open and making the catches. I think that whole situation is still a work in progress. But I agree. I want to see BA be more of an impact. I don't want to go through these games where BA has 2 catches for 17 yards and that's it. Like, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, I feel like you pay that guy $30 million, and that's kind of what Steve Young was talking about on KMBR. It was actually about in reference to why doesn't BA get the ball more? And that's what he said. He said, I think that Kyle has this thing where I don't know if you whatever, like there, he might not just call your number, and he might not just. He was kind of indicating like it's kind of on the play caller to help facilitate that connection, right? To be able to facilitate Brock getting the ball to BA, and George Kittle and Debo followed up in their own podcast and said, yeah, if you're not on Kyle's, good side, you're probably not going to get the ball. So I don't know if it's that. I really don't. It's just Steve's noticing it, right? We're noticing it. Like other guys have talked about it. So it's just like this. It's like this thing is Kyle doesn't scheme up players. He schemes up scheme. And so if that player isn't fitting into this particular scheme for this particular day, this particular player isn't going to have a big day. And I think the only reason why Debo Samuel had a big day is because he got most of those yards on one play.
The thing is this. That's exactly how the negotiations went. Is we don't value you like that. And Brandon Aiyuk's like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Right? Like that was the crux of the problem is you want wide receiver 1 money when we look at you as a wide receiver 2. And that's the problem, right? That was the issue.
Or like wide receiver 1 is interchangeable. Our running back could be
against what personnel, right? What personnel? And like the last 2 weeks, I've been on fire, Brandon Aiyuk against that Arizona Cardinals secondary, easy money. This is Brandon Aiyuk's breakout game, 91 in the first quarter.
Yep.
Debo Samuel against that Seattle secondary, bam, 76 on a touchdown. I'm gonna go to Papa J. Jason, Brandon is due for a huge game. This is his game. No. This is George Kittle's game. This is George Kittle's game. Lock it in. Look at me dead in my face. I've been right for 2 weeks. Look me dead in my face. I'm telling you right now. This is George Kittle's game against those linebackers. Drew Tranquill and any of those guys that want to get out there, you have to get the ball. This needs to be 8, 9, 10 targets to George Kittle. This is George Kittle's game this week. It was Aiyuk 2 weeks ago against Arizona. It was Debo Samuel against Seattle. He made me look good with the 76-yard touchdown. This is George Kittle's game. And George Kittle had 2 touchdowns last week. This is George Kittle's game where you're going to see him catch the ball more than you probably have seen him since he broke that record or was close to breaking the record for most yards in a game. This is a George Kittle game, Brad Graham.
So my prediction of how Spags is going to play these guys is he's going to bracket Kittle. Yep. And he's going to man up Aiyuk on McDuffie. Uh-huh. So that could go 2 ways, right? McDuffie, straps, BA, and then they just clamp Kittle and bracket with either a linebacker, nickel, and safety. And because I've seen some coverages against previous teams who've had success against the 49ers offense where they can muddy things up by bracketing Kittle, because Kittle's always going to be, if not 1, 2, or 3 in the progression. He's always a part of the progression. So if you clamp Kittle and you erase him, you can obstruct the progression of the play where you're either having to go over a progression like 1 to 3 or something. So I think that's kind of more my gut is feeling. My gut is they're going to bracket Kittle, make sure that they don't beat him over the middle, and they're going to go one-on-one with Aiyuk with McDuffie, and then you potentially have Debo in a one-on-one situation, but then that's where maybe we talk about Ricky Pearsall. Can Ricky be a guy that is he going to play? And if he does play, can he be a third option that gets open?
Mm-hmm. I just think that, and look, this is us disagreeing right here. Mm-hmm. I think that Drew Tranquil and all those guys, I forget, is it Barton, whatever his name is, whatever. Those
Drew
guys are
Tranquil?
Drew Tranquil is he's
It's
their other
Tranquil, Bolton, and
Bolton. That's what I wanted to say.
yeah,
Bolton and
and
somebody else. But and what's funny is the other two guys are actually not bad. But with the way that Cleveland, Kansas City blitzes, right? They're gonna blitz corners. They're gonna blitz their slot guy. You're gonna have to leave one of these guys open on somebody. And this is where and Chanel too as well. I think why Kittle is gonna get to see so many, because this is where I feel confident in this game. Brock is better against the blitz now, and he's better against what Kansas City can throw at him now because he's going to see it for the second time. So you're going to start sending your nickel, and you're going to start sending him the blitz, but Brock's going to notice it and get the ball out. This is where I feel confident. This is where I feel like these are things that, yes, you've been successful with down the road, but the reason that I am more confident is because of Brock. So I think you're going to get Kittle on Tranquil. You're going to get Kittle on Cook. You're going to get Kittle on the other safety. That's when you're going to be able to make your money. I don't think that the Chiefs are looking at this team and saying, we need to bracket Kittle off the rip, and we need to make sure that oh my fucking God, 2-0 Yankees, catch my ass. I don't think that you're going to see Kittle be the one that gets bracketed. I think he's the one who's going to eat based off that. I'm sorry. You can go. I'm going to mute myself real quick. Go for it.
No, so I respect it because I do understand what you're saying, and it makes perfect sense. What you're saying isn't like illogical. It makes perfect sense. The way that I'm looking at it is I think that the Chiefs could, and again, this is just a gut feel. I don't know, but I do think they could just rush 4 and drop everyone else. And when you have Karlaftis, when you have Chris Jones, I think they're going to also try to rush Chris Jones off the edge, try to get Chris Jones in one-on-one situations with Colton McKivitz.
That makes sense.
And they try to pressure with 4. And then they again try to drop back, bracket Kittle. That takes him out of the progression over the middle. And then you try to play your games on the back end where they really try to take advantage of stunts, because when you look at the 49ers and where they've given up their most pressures, they've given up their most pressures on stunts. And I have no metrics to back that up. That's just simply from me watching film and watching the offensive line and like being like, all right, we just gave up a pressure. How did it happen? Happened on a stunt. Okay, we gave up another pressure. How did it happen? Happened on a stunt. You had a looper come through. You had them miss a guy. They just been, ever since that Vikings game, the other defenses have been throwing stunt after stunt after stunt. Now, granted, the 49ers have been able to pick it up in games, but I do think that could potentially be the way the Chiefs come out and try to target and try to get to Purdy, is with 4, with Chris Jones, with stunts, potentially play coverage on the back end. But also, Jason, if you tell me they're going straight man across the board, right, and that you're getting Kittle manned up with one of these guys, then yeah, that makes a lot of sense. He's going to be able to beat him with leverage. Brock Purdy's accurate enough to get it to the spot, and they have good enough timing, and they'll be able to figure it out. But I'm very curious because, like you said at the beginning of this, like the biggest matchup might be on the sideline. That's what I think it is. I think this is a chess game between these two teams. And that's what's fascinating to me, is like, how are they going to attack this? How are the Chiefs going to attack the 49ers offense, and vice versa? You know, I'm intrigued very much by it.
So this is a good time to pivot to the offensive line talk, because for the large part, a lot of people have an issue with the 49ers offensive line. And they say this is the reason that the 49ers haven't won a Super Bowl. I would contend that the 49ers offensive line has lost in the biggest moments based on communication errors more than their asses getting kicked every single play. Like Chris Jones is a dog. Chris Jones is that guy. But Chris Jones wasn't whipping everybody's ass during the Super Bowl to the point where you couldn't cover it. Literally on the play that we're all thinking about was a communication error. Right. Why is it that I feel like if the 49ers can just figure out those communication things, and this is what makes Spagnola's blitz packages and everything perfect, is because he'll mug 5, drop 4. 1 is going to come from the place that you're not looking.
This is my concern, what you're saying.
Right. That's it. So this is it. The biggest issue isn't the talent on the offensive line, is the communication and being able to see what's coming. Brad Graham, go off, because this is exactly what you're.
I've talked to multiple people about this. I think Rich and I were talking about this week. Like, just like, why do the 49ers keep getting caught sliding protection to the weak side and they get overloaded on the opposite side and there's a free rusher? I don't know. I don't know the rules, but my interpretation of what I'm seeing is these defenses know what Brendel is keying on. So if you're unfamiliar with protection, you're either sliding protection to your right or to your left in its simplest form. There's different variations where you slide the full offensive line, you slide guard through tackle, or you only slide center through tackle, because you either have a back end to protect, a tight end in to protect. There's a bunch of different variations, but you're typically sliding right, you're typically sliding left. It's just how it works. And so the 49ers find themselves in this spot where they're sliding protection away from the overloaded side, and they get caught in it like clockwork. And it's been happening since 2022, when it really started to pop up, when Brock came in as a rookie and they started throwing zero blitz after zero blitz, because they're like, he's a rookie, so we're going to scheme it up and we're going to get after him. Now, thankfully, Brock was able to escape most of those blitzes, but the same thing continues to apply, is they are getting free rushers through on the weak side because they're sliding protection away. Like the 6-on-6, the interception against Cardinals, right? It was 6-on-6, but they're sliding protection away from the overloaded side, so they didn't have the numbers right. They needed to be sliding to the left to be able to match, and they didn't. And that's the difference. Is it could still be 5-on-5, 6-on-6, but it's where are you sliding protection? Because if you're bringing 3 over in through the C gap, but your center, guard, and tackle are sliding the opposite direction, you got a 2-on-3, and you can't defend that unless you have a running back. And then sometimes they'll have 3-on-4. It's all about numbers, and they keep finding the 49ers in this spot. And now, shout out to Brock, he's able to get out of it most of the time. But obviously, it popped up in a bad time. He gets hit, throws a pick, and that's the difference in the game right there, because it was a crucial play. So I don't know what it is. I don't know. I've been on the verge of asking, one of the guys on the O-line a couple times. I don't want to cross that bridge. Start asking about scheme, like dependent things, like why do you keep at this? But I think if it happens a couple more times, I might finally just ask, like, what are we seeing here? Can you help me understand this better? Because I don't have the answers. I just can identify what the issue is, and I just don't want to see that pop up against the Chiefs with what they got.
And that's the funny part, is everyone just assumes that the 49ers offensive line is derelict of talent. I don't think that's true. And if you want to match them up,
they've actually improved pretty substantially this year,
right? And if you want
throughout the season,
and if you want to compare them to the top O-line groups, that's fine. But a lot of people have an issue with explaining or understanding bang for your buck and what you're getting from each player. And Brad, we've talked about this ad nauseum on State of the Franchise, about stop expecting first round talent from somebody that you are getting from, the 6th round
tackle. You're
right
as a backup,
right.
You're
you're essentially You're getting McGlinchey production without spending the number 9 pick.
100%. You're getting McGlinchey production without paying for McGlinchey. 100%.
Right. And look what Detroit and look what Denver just did, right? Like everyone's going to overpay offensive linemen because of how hard it is to find O linemen.
Yeah.
I think that's the part that is but when I look back at these games and everyone's talking about the offensive line, the 49ers were plays away from winning the Super Bowl with this offensive line. With this same offensive line.
They were plays away winning it with McGlinchey too.
Yeah. Like again, like you're looking at the offensive line and you're like, this is why the 49ers haven't gotten it done. But why you're blaming the offensive line is a different thing. Right. Because it's not a talent deficit thing. I haven't seen anybody get their ass whipped every single play to the point where I'm just like, all right, man, you've got to get this guy off the field. But go ahead.
Brendel and Banks at moments during the beginning portion of this year, I was kind of like, dude, what are we doing here? To your point, but to their credit, they have improved. So you got to call it what it is. There were moments where I was like, all right, Brendel, 2 weeks in, you're getting absolutely cooked. He got the firestorm of Twitter came after him. Remember that? The mob came after him. That was when the whole Feliciano thing came out too. Brendel's been playing really solid ever since then. Now he might have 2 to 3 mishaps a game, but that to me is pretty standard for an offensive lineman.
Well,
and then Banks I thought was struggling
Banks
really
was bad this week.
Yeah. But that's the thing. He was improved from the past 2 weeks. His performance against the Seahawks was better than what he did the last 2 weeks. So all things considered, as long as they continue to improve and take steps forward, then I'm fine. So the hope is that in this game against the Chiefs, we're seeing as a collective group, all 5 playing together, playing their best ball together. And I think that could actually happen. But again, Jason, when I try to give credit to these guys, that tends to backfire in my face. So I'm not gonna come out and proclaim that they are, but it's a feeling that I have.
That's what you get for like giving any sort of praise to any players that are not getting it. DeJerom says, smash that like button, SDS, Spicy Squad, whoop whoop. And Raymond was asking whether it would be easier if Purdy was calling this. So just asking because if Purdy slides the protection to where he calls it, he knows where the free rushes should come from. This is the crux of our argument about Brock Purdy improving. Because it wasn't going to be statistically. Right now, what you're watching is an efficiency dip. And that's not crazy to think because of how efficient he was. But I would argue that right now, Brock Purdy is understanding what he's seeing the ball, seeing where it needs to go. Obviously you're going to look back at that LA game and say, why didn't he rip it to Brandon Aiyuk? He talked about that. Other than that, man, he's missed maybe like 2 or 3 plays. Other than that, he's been throwing the ball in plays where you're just like, no, why are you doing? And it's in the right spot. This is why I'm so confident right now with the 49ers winning this game. The Chiefs are the number 1 blitzing team in the league, and they bring it from different areas. They're going to bring it from, nickel, maybe one of their linebackers, possibly one of their safeties. They're going to disguise it. They're going to scheme it. They're going to throw it. But I've seen something in Brock that lets me know that he has no issue with any of it right now at this point. And I feel much better about him being able to say, oh, there's a free rush to the left side. Well, I've got numbers on the left side. Whoever's there in my slot is probably going to get the ball because that's who you're running off of there. This is the part that I have a hard time pushing back on, and why I feel that the 49ers are going to win this game is because of where Brock Purdy is with his progressions and seeing this once again and seeing it the way that they've been able to throw it. And also, regardless of what Trent McDuffie are, and I think he's a great corner and their other corner, it's not L'Jarius Sneed. L'Jarius Sneed was a lockdown corner last season. There are ways to beat this defense. I think a lot of teams have shown it. They just haven't executed it this season for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And to kind of what Raymond's point and what he's talking about of asking why don't you take the responsibility away from Brendel and give it to Purdy to start calling his own protections. Kyle has talked about this. I don't think Kyle wants that on his quarterback's plate. I think he believes, honestly, that his quarterback has enough things to worry about with reading the defense pre-snap and then, of course, post-snap, and less. He's more concerned about Brock seeing the coverages properly than just being on point with the protection, because Brock does know what protection is uh when Brendel calls it. So it's not like he doesn't know what's happening. He knows where they're sliding, he knows where he has help, he knows when he's getting chips, he knows all those things. And honestly, I think when you look at, so this is what I've noticed is a lot of people are saying Brock has struggled with tip passes. I fundamentally disagree with that, and I also think the data is there to back it up.
Mm-hmm.
I think because they happen in big moments
Mm-hmm.
makes you feel like it's a problem more than it is. Like when you go back to the Cardinals game, he didn't see the free rusher. And so a lot of people were saying, like, when we were doing this exercise of where Brock struggles, like, well, he doesn't see the free rusher. Again, man, I've been watching every single rep of this kid since he came against the Dolphins. Two of his best traits are getting the ball over and around defensive linemen at the line of scrimmage and avoiding free rushers. He's really freaking good at it. He's like a ninja when it comes to avoiding free rushers at times. He absolutely broke one of their safeties' ankles against the Seattle Seahawks because he baited inside and then bounced out, and the safety just completely crumbled as a result. I think it's because when a mistake of that nature happens in a big moment, it's associated with the feeling like, oh, Brock struggles with that. No, it just happened to come at a big time in a big moment. And unfortunately, that's just the way it happened to pan out. I think that's why it's difficult to evaluate football in a vacuum. You have to evaluate body of work. It's why I always talk about offensive line is body of work. You have to be able to stack a body of work to really be able to associate what the key issues are. And when I look at the body of work of Brock, it's not tipped balls and it's not missing the free rusher. If anything, he's damn near, I don't want to say elite, but he's really freaking
He's
good
up there
at identifying free rushers and making the free rusher miss. It's one of my favorite qualities about him. Is it going to happen every play, every game? No. Sometimes the bear gets you, sometimes you get the bear. It's just how they get paid millions of dollars. He might not see it. So I don't think it's a trend. I think they're more one-offs, but because it happens in a big moment, it feels more substantial.
Brad, so I'm gonna go through real quick the secondary for the Chiefs. Trent McDuffie and Jalen Watson have both allowed 14 receptions apiece. Jalen Watson has been targeted more with 27 targets, but Justin Reed seems to be the mark in the safety position. 15 receptions allowed, most on the team. 19 targets, 222 yards, 14.8 per reception. This is the thing: is Jalen Watson and Trent McDuffie have played very well. But let's look at the opponents, right? And let's look at how you value that, right? They play Cincinnati. T. Higgins didn't play in that game. Okay, so it's Jamar Chase and all these other guys. Okay, not the same thing at all. The Saints, they're just clearly not the team that they were early on in the week, right? Like early on in the season, right? Baltimore, they're more of a throw the football to their tight ends guy. And if Isaiah Lively understands how to get his foot in, like just by a little bit, they probably lose that game as well too. Like again, look, I'd rather almost lose than almost win in any capacity, right? Like I'm not trying to like put it out there, but I don't think that the Kansas City secondary is like that in the way that people are giving them the credit for it, because based on the numbers, right? Like based on what
really good.
McDuffie is
everyone
really good.
else is kind of
It's just whatever. Like you're kind of all right. Look,
And when you have a good front seven, you can
Right.
definitely see the positives that come along with having a good front seven.
So if you're blitzing from the linebacker position and a guy doesn't have a chance to get to his spot, I'm not nervous about all these other guys trying to cover the 49ers. It boils down to the protection and what we're talking about. Being able to diagnose, you see it, I see it, this is where I go, this is where you go, let's pass it off. That's the stuff. It's not like the 49ers offensive line gets their ass whipped every single time that they line up against the Chiefs. And I think that is a overreaction. It's just when the biggest moments happen, you have these mental lapses. And you have these moments where it
sticks
happens
with
that way.
you for a long time.
Right.
Everything when we talk about that Super Bowl, we talk about that play. Like it.
Yeah.
So it's really easy to say the offensive line sucks because they lost the game, right? It's really easy to say that. So yeah, I get it. I get it for sure.
Yeah. All right. Let's get out of here, Brad, but I'm not letting you off the hook. It's time. Prediction time. Go for it.
Prediction time?
Score.
All right. I got a prediction, and I got a prediction of how it's going to end. So my score prediction is 34-32. And the Chiefs are going to have the ball with 40 seconds left, no timeouts, and they're going to be trying to drive the length of the field to get into field goal range to kick a game-winning field goal. Diamador Lenore gets a game-sealing interception on Patrick Mahomes.
That is incredibly specific. And it's actually like, honestly, I love the specifics when it comes to that. But I am going to say, because I wrote it down and you can like find it on Niners Nation. It's in stone.
It's in print.
It's in print. 27-24, 49ers win. This is a big George Kittle game. George Kittle is going to go crazy in this game, and he's going to be the difference in this one. Jordan Mason, full go, ready to go. Ricky Pearsall, obviously, we're going off vibes, but 27-24, I've got the 49ers winning this one. Call me delusional, call me an idiot, fine, do all those things, but I don't think I could get up here in front of you guys and tell you, like, to your face, no, I don't think the 49ers have a chance. No, they've had a chance many times, and they've been able to be right there. And I think this is the time that you get over the hump. If you can't beat this Kansas City Chiefs team in this version, then we might just have to revisit this thing and just be like, you know what? You can't beat them ever.
I feel like it's going to be the same energy, same mentality as they had against the Seattle Seahawks, and they're going to roll it into this game. And we know this team plays their best with their backs against the wall. And hey, they're going up against the boogeyman right now, and it's time to exercise some demons, and they got to get over this hump. And I think Ricky, and I think all of the emotions of it, I think it's that kind of game. I do think they, again, I'm big proponent of actually lining up and playing it. I think they have a great chance at winning this game, but they got to get out of their own way. That's the biggest key. Yep.
And thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you so much, Austin Wells, for a 3. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. All right. I'm getting to Yankee baseball. Let's go. Thank you guys so much for tapping in. That is not Andrew Pasquini. That is Brad Graham. Brad Graham stepping in for Andrew Pasquini. Did a bang-up job. I know you guys are all following him and everything as well, too. Thank you for the nuanced, perfect conversation about this. The 49ers are going to win on Sunday, and you're going to be able to, like, look at both of us right now. But, hopefully the New York Yankees by Sunday will be in the World Series. And if they keep this up, they should be in a good spot. But, Brad, thank you so much for jumping in. I know that you're a busy man. You got a lot going on. Tell everybody what else you got going on today. Let them know. You're not done
today. So I'll be going on KNBR, hopping on Niners Nightly with Kruger, and so we'll be doing a quick little show over there. That should wrap it up for me today. That will be the 5th live appearance out here on these YouTube streets. So definitely been a busy day, but it's been a fun day. And I appreciate you having me on Sprint Ride Option. I did my best to fill in for Pasquini. All those are very, very large shoes to fill. I tried my best. I really did. I hope you're proud of me, Pasquini.
I mean, he needs to be. I mean, they are very large shoes. And, you had to wear very large socks to get into those shoes or whatever. But for Jason, for Brad, and for Andrew, who just couldn't make it Thank you guys for tuning in. And as always, let's go Niners. Welcome, everybody.
We are live.
My name is Jason Aponte.
I am Andrew Pasquini.
We're working. That's it. We're working over here. That's it. Let's go Niners.
Let's